All right, welcome everyone to the select board meeting, Monday, May 8th, 2023. I'm Sabrina Dunlap. We have Ken Trom, Stephen Whitley, and Thomas Lapoma, and Jeff Donahoe cannot be with us tonight. And I'm sorry that I missed the last meeting. We were on vacation for school vacation week, so.
I'm sorry you missed it.
I think you both have to pull your microphones close. Sorry.
Is that better?
We always
Oh,
get
God.
complaints they can't hear
That's-
Ken.
Yes,
Don't love this. Okay. All right, so we will start with points of pride.
Sure. The first one is just sort of a shout out to Jolene and Christine at the transfer station. We're one staff member down and we've had another one that's been out recently. And they've been coming in weekends to catch things up and do things, or not weekends because they work weekends, but days off. And so just keeping everything going in the way it does. Being short-staffed is hard. And the same way the highway crew, they're down 2 people at the moment. And as we go into spring where the grass grows very quickly, especially buildings and grounds, this is a really busy time for them doing spring cleanups and getting everything spruced up and mulch spread and all of that. And watching them spread mulch when it's pouring rain. So I just wanted to just highlight those 2 groups that right now are running short-staffed and still doing an excellent job.
I guess I'd actually just add on that, actually about a half hour ago, Dan tried to recruit me to drive a dump truck. So that it's really trying and I declined.
You know, if you're a full-time employee, you can't also be on the board.
Oh, okay, I'll have to tell Dan again. I
Reconsider,
can't. No, and also with Jolene had sent out an email to, I guess, the distribution list that she has. And I just wanted to read it because it shows how much she cares about her job and the transfer station. To everyone who was here this past Saturday, I want to send out a huge thank you. We have many amazing people who come in on a regular basis and ask questions when they are unsure, check in like we ask, and overall do a wonderful job. But this weekend I left here in amazement. We were busy, so many people came through the facility. And I cannot remember the last time we had so little contamination in the recycling. I usually have at least one person who either doesn't feel like recycling or doesn't know how. So they dump their whole barrel into my number 2 color bay. It is also usually loaded with colored bottles number 1. None of this weekend. So thank you. Also, the brush and leaves were kept separated in their appropriate piles. Another miracle considering such a busy yard cleanup season. Once again, thank you all so much for your efforts. They're very much appreciated. I think that just shows how much she is concerned about the transfer station and her job.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
And it's worth noting how much easier it makes it when people do take the time to put things where they go. It's relatively simple to separate when you're throwing stuff in. It's really hard to go through everything and separate it after it's all been mixed together.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Anything else for points of pride? Right. Thank you for sharing. So under administrative, we have approval of the consent agenda.
Sure, I'll move we approve the consent agenda of May 8, 2023.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Approval of the public meeting minutes of April 24th, 2023, and I'll abstain since I was not there.
I'll move, but note I wanted to make one change to section 4. It just the vote is recorded as 4-0 when it was 3-1.
We've had that discussion and it's
Okay, if
getting
that's been
corrected.
okay. With that, I'll move that the minutes be approved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All
We
right.
passed. We took
Abstain.
bets on if anyone else found that.
What do I win?
2 more years on the select board.
I didn't see it.
All right. Next up, we have our one and only public appointment, Digit Taylor. Hello, Digit. Nice to see you. I did. It was nice to get away for a little bit.
So if I could vote on points of pride, I would do one for you guys, because look at you here week after week doing your grinding work. Thank you very much from me as at least one of the townspeople. I think you're doing a great job.
Thanks, David.
Yep, the main thing I'm here for tonight is to seek your permission to apply for funding from LCHIP for the Dustin project that I've spoken to you about before. We expect to look for about $120,000 from LCHIP. We've already received grants for about $200,000 from DES.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions about that?
I guess, are there any strings attached if we receive the grant?
Yes, it has to be spent on the purpose for which it is given,
Well,
which is the conservation easement at
Mhm.
Dustin.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't take it and use it to improve the transfer station or anything. Sorry, I know it needs help.
Anyone else? Okay. Do we need to make a motion on that or just general permission?
Maybe make a motion that you support the, just in case we need it for something.
Yeah, I mean, given the next piece that Neil and I will talk to you about, we'll probably be coming back later with official wording or something that they need. So what I'm looking for tonight is just approval to apply.
Mhm.
Later, if we get the money, then I'll need you to approve accepting it. But I think
Okay,
just
I'll-
permission to apply tonight. would
I'll move.
suffice.
I will second.
All right, all those in favor?
Did you get that? Karen?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous.
Super. Do you want to talk about the DES piece now, Neil?
So this is going to look very familiar. So we have received a grant for the Digit applied for $25,000 to pay for the transaction costs of this project from DS. And this grant authorization authorizes me to sign that, and then we can send it to the governor and council. We have all sorts of things going on at the governor and council. It's just, this is the same as the ones we've done, I think, at the last 3 meetings.
They're very clear that it needs to be signed by somebody different than Neil if Neil is signing the grant agreement.
Okay.
So they'll vote it, and actually Carol will sign it as the clerk, certifying the vote.
They really did vote. Yep.
And
This one needs to be notarized as well.
Do we? Sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna ask, do we need to authorize an additional individual to sign if?
no, I'll sign the grant, but Carol as the clerk will certify that you took this particular vote.
Okay.
Your turn to move.
I move that we authorize the grant as is stated in our packet here.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, it's unanimous.
Do you want to talk about the new appointees to the Open Space Committee also, since I'm sitting here, or is that later in the agenda?
Nope, that's right now. So if you want to,
We have 2 people who are eager to be appointed as alternate members to the Open Space Committee. I'm very excited about this because we could use an infusion of energy. It's Laurie Summer, who just retired from running a grant program at DES that deals with conservation, and it is Bill Dunlap, who walks the trails a lot.
and I did include in your packet the vote at town meeting, which says there's 5 members. It doesn't mention alternates, but I assume you have the authority to have alternates. There's still 5 members.
We have 1 alternate already, and my conversation with Neil suggested that 2 more would be acceptable to you guys.
Nice. I can vouch for at least one of them. Although Lori sounds.
Laurie,
great,
right?
too. Yeah.
That other guy might be a little shady.
Okay, that's just like a FYI, right? We don't have to take action. I mean, we signed the,
Yes, so they were on the consent agenda, so
Okay,
they've been
perfect.
approved.
perfect.
Perfect.
Thank you,
Thank you all
Digit.
very much.
Thanks.
That's the
All right, we're on to old business. First up is naming criteria policy.
So this is the policy that was discussed at last meeting. And based on publicizing it and gaining input, there are just a couple of changes. So in section 4, actually it was Gail Kimball who said it's not clear, does this cover the library and the cemeteries? So this clarifies that it's town property that is controlled by the select board, and just note that the library and cemeteries are controlled by the individual trustees. So this policy does not apply to those properties. And then Stephen suggested.
Oh, right. That was for the Merle Dustin.
Oh, never mind. That's why it's not. I'm like, oh no, I have the wrong version. So that was the only comment that I received during the week.
I can't get it to load on my computer for some reason. Is this brand new? Like you've all discussed it at the last meeting, or was this in existence and it's just been modified?
This was brand
It's
new
brand
at the
new.
last meeting.
Okay.
And then it
Yes.
was put out as a news and announcement for people to review.
Can I see the criteria?
Not all at once.
Okay. You can scroll it. Okay. I assume this was based on a existing.
It was,
Down,
and
okay.
actually that was in the last packet too. The
Oh, okay, I think I
one
did
we
look at that
stole
one
it
then.
from.
Okay, good.
I guess and I don't know if I'm being reading this too narrowly, but in the objectives, one of it's the, what is it, the second bullet talks about ensuring that given names are consistent with and reflect positively on the town. And I just wonder if that should be copied and pasted so that it's an explicit part of the criteria. Because I don't see similar sort of language in the actual criteria.
Should almost be number 1.
It should be in there someplace, I think. And I think it should apply to both naming designation and also accepting a memorial item. But otherwise, I think this looks really, really good.
I only got it to download.
And I don't think there's really a hurry, so can make that change and bring it back.
Okay. That sounds good. All right, why don't we do that? All right. So next up is town meeting survey review.
So can I just back up pretty? So are we gonna bring the naming policy back one more time then?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Is that?
Yep, nope, I just wanted to make sure I got that. Okay.
All right, so we had 122 responses to the survey, which is pretty good in a relatively short time. So I'll just quickly run through. It's interesting. The first question was, did you attend town meeting this year? 51 people did, or 42%, and 69 didn't. So that stayed fairly close through all the responses. And clearly people that didn't, the reason was other commitments. A few, the meeting was too long, 12, and lack of childcare, which may be lack of publicizing childcare enough, because we did have childcare,
Mhm.
maybe part of it. And then, did you attend the town meeting the year before? And that was close. 59 did, 57 didn't, and 3 couldn't remember whether they did or not. So that was kind of interesting. And fewer people attended school district meeting this past year. Only 44% and almost 56% did not. So this question, would you likely attend both town and school district meeting if they weren't on consecutive Saturdays? 67% said they would more likely do that if they weren't back-to-back weeks. So then we get to the when would be your preferred time. So I think actually we got a little skewed here. The Tuesday of town meeting of elections wasn't in the original draft, but we added it at the meeting last time. And I think that skewed it a little because people were confusing SB2 and other forms with that versus just having the meeting. So that actually came out the highest.
Do you think people voted for that thinking it was, do you want to do SB2?
Yes, and based on the comments, which are in your packet
Okay.
separately, it appeared that probably that's why that went as high as it did. And then what came in second with 28 votes, and really the others are all pretty close to each other, except nobody wants it on Friday evening, clearly. And actually Saturday morning as it is, there were 25. So really 25 people. So really between 23% and 26% for all those in the middle. But it seems like a Thursday evening or a Wednesday evening in the evening. I think if you're looking to do something different, certainly then reaching out to people who are involved, because I think Wednesday night would be a really hard night given how long Tuesdays are. And maybe Tuesday, the following Tuesday.
Well, I was gonna say, I think when we talked about it at the last meeting, I, for whatever reason, was thinking that it would not be the same Tuesday as voting day, because I don't think that would even be feasible. And so I should have clarified that at the time, because would the next week be a viable option? Because that's what was in my brain, was that it would be absolutely not the same day as voting day. But the
And you
week
actually
after.
could do Monday that week too, Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
And get it out of the same week as elections.
Yeah.
I think you couldn't do it at night before Thursday at the earliest.
Right.
Because it just and the long day Tuesday, and also we're there pretty early on Wednesday morning to break everything down, and
Mhm.
then to have a late night meeting, just, I don't think
Yeah.
it necessarily works for any, but I think probably what came out of this is there may be some feeling that a different time between than 2 Saturdays in a
yeah.
row for the 2 meetings. Is kind of what came out of that.
Yeah, because I think even with my screw up of which Tuesday we were talking about, or our collective screw up on that, it seems clear that all of these answers are consistent with people not wanting it to be back-to-back Saturdays. So that seems to be the most important takeaway.
Mhm. Neil, was this also sent out by the schools in one fashion or another?
No. And it on purpose didn't really include timing for school meeting. But you always have those discussions with the school board.
This isn't something that would have to be decided for many months yet.
I would say September or October. Ideally. It was interesting that some of the comments were the town meeting time should be set sooner. Well, it's set pretty soon, and I thought we published it sooner, but we can always keep trying to put that out there more. And people were relatively interested in attending in the 79% range, and then
I'm sad that not 100% of people
how interested
answered
you
yes to
attend-
that.
Yes.
And a shorter meeting.
Yes. Some people wished, some of the comments showed that they wished for shorter meetings, but they weren't sure how that could happen.
I think, like you said, Brittany, the biggest takeaway for me was how only 25% of the people responding like the way we currently do it. That's
Mhm.
pretty powerful response.
You would expect that to be higher just
It's
because,
the status quo.
yeah.
I
So,
mean, I don't know. I feel like we should talk with probably Sarah and the supervisors and Carol
Yeah, definitely.
about what it would mean to do something different and what it would mean for them, I guess, more specifically, to do something different.
Is there a downside if we were to push the business session into the week after? No, there's no like logistics.
no, because actually there have been years where we voted on Tuesday. School meeting was that next Saturday and we were the Saturday after.
Huh.
I think school has to have their meeting before the end of the month,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure we have a deadline.
I was just looking, there really isn't one.
And I only know that because of COVID and when we were looking at all of our options.
Okay. All right, well,
And I would almost think there's some advantage to doing it in a different week,
mhm.
just to, and you could figure out what time worked best if it was a weeknight. Our
Mhm.
meetings have been 3 to 4 hours, so they really haven't they haven't gone beyond that in a number of years.
Do you know in other towns our size that might have a meeting at night, what time do they start?
Yes, I have a list in my head of every,
Okay.
no, I have no idea. I think it would be interesting. We could look, but
Yeah, the monitor had them. I looked at it with great interest this year. There was a list. I don't remember exactly, but I feel like a lot of them were in the 6 to 7 p.m. range that they start.
I would guess we tend here in Hopkinton to do meetings earlier than some towns. a lot. It used to be traditional to have 7 or 7:30 meetings, and I'm really glad we're at the 5:30 and 6. Our public hearings, we always hold at 6. And we really haven't gotten feedback that that's too early for people to make it.
Mhm. Okay. All right. Well, we can go through the comments and I mean like on our own time and take a look and see if we can extract anything helpful, and then maybe we can revisit sometime relatively soon with other interested people. Does that sound okay to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thanks for putting that together, Neil. That was helpful. Okay, so next up under old business, we have Horseshoe Tavern.
Sure, you have the inspector's report. It pays to hire a former home inspector and have them on staff. So just we did not pay for that report. It was a report. So and basically when you do a subdivision that's small, to go back to kind of the beginning where we are at, it requires DS approval, and there just is not enough land in that area to subdivide that off. Our septic is across the street, under the pipe runs under the road, and that's where the majority of the parking is, but that's just a right of way. That's not even land we own. If we owned it, we might be able to use it, but it doesn't really count because it's a right of way. So so the surveyor has said we cannot subdivide it off. So then the question is, what do you do? What's next? So we did the inspection thinking this gives a good base of kind of knowing quite a bit is involved. I will note that we have removed the propane tanks already. That was noted as being too close to the road, and they have been removed. In some ways, not that I'm recommending this, it lends itself, if work were done, to housing versus a business because of the lack of parking and things like that.
So do you have a ballpark estimate on how much we would have to spend to bring it up to code to rent it as a residential unit?
No, but if you want to pursue that, we can certainly try to put some estimates together.
How did this become the town's?
So it is part of the cabins property.
Always been part of the cabins?
That's a good question. I think it has.
I mean, it used to be a functional tavern, right?
It was at one point. Right, it was a restaurant.
Right. Was it the town's then?
No, the town acquired it from the Girl Scouts. It was Kimball's, and then it was donated. I almost think it was donated to the Boy Scouts first, and then ended up with the Girl Scouts. And when the Girl Scouts didn't want it, it came to the town.
I was gonna say, we could potentially do a long-term lease to a commercial or business entity. I'm not crazy about being a residential landlord.
Yeah, no.
Same.
But I don't want it necessarily just sitting there. And I'm kind of scared to see what the estimate is of what it will take to bring it up to more attractive condition. So that kind of leaves us with long-term lease, which would probably require a town meeting approval, because I don't think we have anything. Do we have one for
You
this?
do have that, because we had it
Was that specific
There-
to?
There were
Bates
votes
Building?
to
No.
sell it
Okay,
back. But I'll check on the lease because actually I guess our lease that turned out to be long-term was renewed. Not necessarily long-term.
yeah, because I guess pending what you find, we may need a town meeting vote to do that.
If it was subdivided off and then joined with Lake House Tavern property, would that give them enough land for the septic issues?
I think there's not, the water comes pretty
Really close.
close to the road in that there's Horseshoe Tavern and then there's a little alcove where the dry hydrant is. And then there's very little,
No, but like, so the DES issue is that there's not enough land to have septic. But if it was subdivided and then joined into an abutting property, then they might have enough land. Which you still couldn't put a septic tank there. They'd still have to use the septic in the easement.
Yeah.
But there might be enough total land in the new parcel to get around that.
to make it.
Or do like a lot line adjustment and then
Right.
subdivide it.
Well, there is the land, when you go in the driveway, the land on the right where the sign is actually privately owned and goes with the cabin that's on the right. Maybe there's some possibility of negotiating a lot line adjustment there
Mm.
to get some of that.
Yeah, how do we know how short we are in terms of acreage?
I don't know off the top of my head,
Yeah.
but I can find out.
Because I do think it's worth looking into trying to work something out with those surrounding property owners. I mean, who knows if they're interested in that, but
I could take that and do that research, and then we'll start also get an estimate. Just to sort of do the required things that would.
Yeah.
It's actually a very nice office space and quite a nice view with the deck, and it does need some work, but it's not, you don't walk in and think it's horrible. It's not a bad space. I've seen worse offices.
almost fish off the deck.
Yeah.
Bet you could.
Long cast.
All right, anything on the tavern for tonight? All right, more to come on that. Okay, next up. Updated numbers on pay by bag.
Are you presenting this one?
No, this is not my
Good
presentation.
try.
Thank you.
Cool. Are you sure?
I like the color you chose, so it's.
Thanks. I've made so many presentations, I had to come up with a new color. Cool. So, yeah, as a recap, after the conversation last time, the goal was to come up with better numbers, like actual real physical numbers based on better estimates to see what a program might actually look like in practice. So yeah, so if you go to the next slide, Neil. So yeah, we'll quickly go over just like the general concept. And again, this is not like a proposal. This is not anything more than just a potential concept to see if it's worth more discussion about expanding green bag use in curbside pickup. We'll look at some numbers and ballpark pricing, and if this is an idea that has legs, potential next steps. And I think one of the reasons why, at least to me, this concept might be appealing is as I go more and more into the numbers. If we look at the population of Hopkinton, how many people are using curbside pickup, and then how many people are using green bags, the single largest user of green bags is curbside pickup right now. Based on the estimates, there's probably close to about 50% of the green bags going into the transfer station are coming from empty trash right now. So this certainly doesn't address issues at the transfer station. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done on a lot of different aspects of the transfer station, recycling, green bag program enforcement, all of these things. But in terms of simple changes that could make a potential large impact into actual users using the green bags, this seems like it could be a low-hanging fruit. So on the next slide, it kind of goes into some of the general concepts. So again, just to go over it again, the idea would be we would be paying commercial haulers, and this estimate though 100 to 200 is low. We'll talk more about better numbers, but the general concept is pay commercial haulers a per tonnage amount for green bags that they drop at the transfer station. So for example, right now, if a commercial hauler is doing curbside pickup and taking that waste to the transfer station, we charge them money. If they bring green bags to the transfer station, we don't charge them any money. In this scenario, if they bring green bags to the transfer station, we would pay them money. We would increase the cost of the bags to cover that cost. And then the idea being the users who are using curbside pickup are no longer being billed or charged by the haulers. They're just buying their bags. And that's how the revenue flows. So it incentivizes less waste because individuals are then having to pay for individual bag usage. So it's a very clear sign of how much you're wasting. It simplifies the bag use enforcement because we don't actually have to change anything. We do exactly what we're doing now, where the haulers are picking up green bags and they only pick up green bags on those routes. And then they bring them to the transfer station and they dump we already are checking for those loads if they're coming in only green bags. It eliminates billing for curbside users because they no longer pay the haulers, they just buy and use green bags. And then it has the potential to expand the number of curbside users. This is important to note because this was actually when the major outcome of the 2015 Select Committee. When the Select Committee reevaluated the entire program in 2015, their single largest recommendation was expanding the use of curbside pickup for green bags. So in terms of estimates, this is where the estimates, especially in our town, are incredibly hard to nail down because of all of the different streams of how the waste goes. I think there's like 8 different ways that waste can be disposed of in our town. And all of them are interconnected. So trying to nail down an estimate is extremely hard. The most important one to try to nail down is the weight per person per year. I kind of started here. So these are 2 estimates, a low and a high. And I kind of did a low and a high estimate and then stacked all those estimates on top of each other to get kind of like a worst case, best case scenario for pricing. So this waste per person per year, this is based on national averages and then also using estimates on how much waste is reduced when you move into a green bag program. So on average, if you look at pay by bag programs throughout New Hampshire and Vermont, you see reductions of up to 50% of individual waste reduction. So taking national average of how much waste generally people consume per year, and then using those ratios to come up with what would be, if people were only using green bags, what would be a general estimate of low and high pounds per year. This was then backed up by working with Empty Trash and looking at some of their numbers because they can actually look at, like right now, we have no way of tracking how much green bag weight goes into the hopper, but because they do individual routes, they have numbers for the weights and they also have households that are in there. So based on their numbers, those match up pretty well to these estimates of how much weight we'd expect a green bag user to produce every year. So we have our town population estimates, which can vary. We have a number of households that can vary. So then we end up with persons per household. And from that, we can get a general idea of if someone was going to be a green bag user or a green bag household, how much waste would they be producing? So then in terms of the curbside estimates, so these numbers are based on Empty Trash's general numbers of what they do now. So charging a household, they do quarterly billing of roughly $85 for a curbside green bag user. So that cost there doesn't include any tipping fees because they are picking up green bags, taking those green bags to the transfer station and not being charged for them. So that price is just their service cost effectively. That comes out to be $654 per week per household. So if we look at the estimates, we then get, I think the bags per house per week doesn't really matter too much because we end up with just using the numbers of pounds. But we have pounds per household per year, which comes down to pounds per household per week, or cost per pound. So our cost per pound for the curbside, so how much they are charging per pound currently, is somewhere between $14 to 18 cents per pound of green bag trash that's going to the transfer station. So in terms of pricing, this is where we kind of have to bring all of the different costs into one unit, and then that's how much the green bags would have to cost. So our current transfer cost would be about 40. I tend to just look at the 10-pound bag because that's kind of the easier one. The number is a little bit easier to divide out. But the transfer cost for us, so once the bag's in our hopper, our transfer cost out is 48 cents for the 10-pound bag. The bag cost is 32 cents. Then in terms of the hauler cost, so the low and high estimates, somewhere between $1.40 to $1.80 that we'd have to be paying the hauler for how much they're bringing in. That'd be a total cost for the 10-pound bag, a total cost of somewhere between $2.20 to $2.61. So that number, that 220 to 261, that would be the user would go pay that price at the store. That cost would cover the bag price that we would be paying, covering the transfer cost and covering the service cost of hauling it out. So for users, currently, if you're using green bags, your current price is around 63 to 75 cents per pound. And the reason why it varies is because you get a different rate if you're buying a 20-pound bag versus a 10-pound bag. I'm not totally sure how the prices were set, but you get a deal if you're using the 20-pound bags. So the new price would be 22 cents to 45 cents per pound. So a 10-pound bag would be $2.40, and a 20-pound bag would be $4.86, around there, somewhere in there. That's like the middle of the zone. So then for haulers, so to make up their service cost, we would be paying them somewhere between $2.80 to $3.60 a ton. And that would be entirely funded by green bag revenue. So we would be collecting the revenue from the green bag sales. For every ton that is being dropped off, we would just be taking that revenue and giving it to the haulers. And that would make up their revenue for not having to charge the customers. So for the town, 100% of the cost is covered by the green bag revenue. The cost of operating the transfer station is not. The cost of operating the transfer station, the staff, equipment, that's all still jointly paid for by Hopkinton and Webster. So it doesn't totally make sense to incorporate that into the green bag cost, because that should be shared jointly between Hopkinton and Webster. And just noting, currently we're losing 5 to 39 cents per bag with our current pricing. So right now we're currently not covering 100% of the green bag cost. So how would this change everything? For users, for current users, not talking about people who are taking it to the transfer station, for current curbside users, it basically doesn't change anything about how they use the system. They use the same green bags. They do the same thing that they normally do, where they fill them up, put them on the curbside, and have them picked up. The only big difference is they don't have to pay quarterly to the haulers. They would pay a higher price for the bag, but they wouldn't be paying for anything for the haulers. It's important to note, though, is that the price of the bag is increasing significantly, but the actual cost to the user should be identical. This number breakdown has your quarterly cost of a household being exactly the same. The bag prices increases significantly, but you're no longer paying $85 a quarter, and you come out net exactly the same. So for haulers, operationally, it would be identical to what they're doing now, except they wouldn't be billing anybody. So they'd be picking up the same green bags from the same users. They would no longer have to bill customers, and theoretically it could expand customer base easier because they no longer have to sign somebody up or do anything. They could just pick up bags on their route. The transfer station will record the weight as they normally do now. They would check the loads for green bags as they normally do now. And then the only real difference is we would be sending a check instead of a bill to the haulers. So that's generally the overview, how all the numbers break down. Again, this could be a horrible idea. It could be an interesting idea. Still not sure either way. But in terms of next steps, if this was an idea we're talking about, I think the next step would be to have a much more structured conversation with the haulers in town to discuss their actual interests, actual phase-in plans, how we'd actually approach it, timing, numbers, that sort of thing. This is not something that we would want to like just have a giant email blast out saying everyone can dump their trash bags on the side of the road now. We definitely want to do it slowly and carefully. We'd have to determine the final actual bag price and the hauler payment structure. This would likely be a bit of a negotiation because there is a range. And so there's a lot of factors in there about what that high and low estimate is, and also what that price per ton is. And so there would have to be a determination there. And then there would have to be public hearings to modify the pay by bag ordinance. We'd be modifying the ordinance to then change the structure so that we would be requiring green bags picked up and paying the haulers. And then we coordinate with everybody and communicate with initial users. So that's kind of it. Just more information from last week.
Thomas, thank you for that. And you're 10 steps ahead of my thinking. So just so I can understand, if this were implemented, would the amount of property tax revenues required from taxpayers be increased or decreased?
It should be significantly decreased. So if the only thing that happened was we no longer, if all the exact same users did the exact same thing and used the green bags, it would decrease. Because right now the green bags don't cover the total cost of the green bag, or the green bags don't cover the total cost of the transfer. So at the very least, it would decrease it based on that. If we significantly expanded the green bag usage, so that more people that are not using green bags are now using green bags, it would significantly decrease property taxes.
I think that should be a potential selling point in your presentation. Now, one concern I have is enforcement. Again, instead of paying $1 or $2 for a green bag, now people are being asked to pay $6. Or more people just going to say, forget it, and going to go to the transfer station and use regular bags?
So, great question. I don't think so. The cost structure is identical to what the normal curbside users are using now. So there is no real change for a curbside user. So it shouldn't increase the number of people going. This doesn't address any of the issues of enforcement at the transfer station. I think like at least from the 2015 select report, the indication was the best way to get better enforcement was to basically get as many people as possible into curbside pickup, because there's a single person who's already doing enforcement and it kind of makes that system better. This doesn't address the changes that would need to be done at the transfer station. So I don't know if that's a great answer or not.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure there is a great answer.
Yeah.
I'm sure there is not.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not really a direct response to
Yeah.
that, more of like a general sort of comment about our process. I mean, I know that we had an email from Brian Patno with some information and also sort of a request to have him do a full cost accounting before we make any changes to the pay as you go program. And so I wonder if we should pause this and think about doing that and then see if we end up back at this as an approach. I'm hoping foolishly that because his organization works with communities all over the state on trash disposal and waste issues, that maybe there's some component of this that we're not either taking into consideration that would address our concerns. And, hopefully, I guess, maybe he has a magic bullet, probably not. But we won't know until we, I think, speak to him and invite them to come and tell us what their suggestions are. But on what you put together, Thomas, I mean, I think it's a really, really interesting proposal. I worry about the non-hauler users and the enforcement, like Ken just brought up. And I also worry about, you know, I don't know if we're really encouraging recycling by doing this. Because if people want to pay money and just throw everything in a green bag,
So,
I mean, they can do that.
so there's two things there. So again, I agree generally with what you're saying. So there's two sides of it. So first of all, we're not doing any enforcement now.
Yeah.
So yeah, this doesn't make enforcement better, but it also doesn't make it worse. It doesn't change anything about the transfer station.
Yeah.
So it's to me, that's a kind of a separate issue. Like we know something needs to be done there. This doesn't address that, but I don't think we're going to find a solution that fixes every single thing. And in terms of recycling, right now, a curbside user pays a flat rate per month. There is no incentive at all for recycling. So this doesn't necessarily completely solve recycling, but it does incentivize it because it takes a user who's paying a flat rate and putting them into a situation where they're no longer doing that. Now they're paying per bag. So they don't have a better recycling solution, but they do have an incentive to recycle. And then it becomes, how do we actually make it easier for them to recycle, which is kind of like a follow-on problem, but it does go from a scenario where there's no incentive to recycle to an incentive to recycle, just without a great recycling solution.
Okay.
So it does seem to make sense to move forward and ask for that full cost analysis, which will just add to the information.
Yeah. And don't we have the waste reduction committee coming in next meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. If you all are okay, do you want to see if people have questions?
Sure. Yeah, I'm fine with whatever.
Anyone wants to comment or question on this? Louise, can you come talk in the mic so people can hear you?
Louise Carr, Burnham-Interville Road. So if you go up to, because one of the prices for, I think most people probably use the 20-pound bag.
I have no idea. I honestly don't.
Do we have? Yeah, that's true.
So that's, it's the larger one.
The large
one.
bag.
Yeah, the big bag.
They're 20 and 13 technically
So,
gallons.
so if you go to, I'm fearful, I don't know, have you been reading the comments on Facebook about this?
No.
And no one has sent emails in?
No.
I hate it when people complain and then they don't follow through. Actually, I told them that you have to like follow through and actually send emails so they know what you're thinking. So anyway, I've been reading a lot of complaints that they want to just cancel it and be done with it because they don't see how it could be a fair system with Webster and Hopkinton. That's, everyone's, they have their opinion. I just encourage them to, send their thoughts to you guys. But if they didn't, oh well. But if you do go up to $5, do you think people would go to the other hauler so they don't have to pay and they'll just pay for the pickup?
So they'd be spending the same amount of money every quarter. You'd be spending it once a quarter as opposed to buy your bags. So I think that if there's someone who's probably wasting a ton and doesn't want to care about it, then yeah. But if there's someone who, there is a way to reduce your cost by wasting less. So if someone who says, I'm going to use one less bag a week, it reduces their cost.
But I think the people that are presently doing it, that you get to a point of you outprice yourself. So that becomes the heck with it. I'm afraid that might happen. I mean, just like everything, you buy anything, it's like, do I want to pay this price point? And you go, it went up too much. The heck with that. I don't want to do that. So I'm just fearful that might happen. And also there's been complaints also on Facebook that they can't find the bags. So that's another thing. So if you're gonna do this, you're gonna have to make it really easy for people to get bags, and most people do their shopping in Concord. So and I don't know what the situation is, like who sells them and all that, but maybe follow up with who does. Do they have them in stock? What's the problem? Are they not? Did they just forget to order them, or but anyways, just something to follow up on if you continue with that program, as to, why aren't they getting the bags, I guess. But good luck. This is a very complicated problem. Good luck.
Thanks, Louise. Anyone else at the moment? There's more to come on this, obviously, but Bonnie, I think your hand's first.
Are these both on?
I think so.
I just find it almost impossible to engage or ask any intelligent questions because they don't understand this. I really don't. Have so many questions. I don't know what a 20-pound bag is. I don't know what a 10-pound bag is. 26% of the users, according to your chart from the last thing, don't use green bags, and they take their own trash to the transfer station. So how would that change? A quarter of the town would still.
The other way around. A significant portion are not using green bags.
Correct.
Yeah.
26%.
No,
That's what it said in your chart.
the other way. It's like 26 are using green bags.
No.
Yeah.
Sorry. Maybe I read the chart.
It's definitely not 75% of people are using green bags.
Uses TF, did you mean TS?
Yeah.
Without bags, 26.5%.
That's out of the people who are using the transfer station. So more than 50% of the town is using curbside pickup. So out of the other half-ish, other 40-ish% that's using the transfer station, a sizable portion of them are not using.
Okay, see, I couldn't understand that because it's not explained here. I have asked for the information beforehand, and I know everybody's busy, but I feel like I'm spending a lot of time working on our recommendations from the Waste Reduction Committee, and I'm beginning to think why. Why am I investing all this stuff? We're working on something that's completely different than what you're working on. And it seems like we're going like this and we can never find the time to sit down together. And just to understand what you're talking about. Maybe some of our ideas do mesh, but I don't understand. There's too many questions. So
Yes.
that's
So I
all I
think-
have to say tonight.
Oh, thanks, Bonnie. I think process wise, like to Stephen's point, we're hopefully going to move forward with engaging more with the people at the NRA and doing a total cost accounting, I think is what he called it. And then talking to the Waste Reduction Committee at our next meeting. I think this is just like an idea sort of on, right here. And we're still doing all the other stuff that we talked about.
Mhm.
So, just want to be clear on that it's not like all of a sudden we're.
And how long do you anticipate the full cost accounting would take to get that?
That I don't know.
It's like a 6-month process, a
No.
year, a
Oh,
week?
no. I think I don't know. I don't want to put words.
Okay.
And
I
that was
just-
the
I just worry
recommendation.
about kicking the can down the road. Now we're going to
Right.
pay for the full cost
And
accounting and then.
we engaged with, I don't think that we can't do anything in the meantime, but that was the recommendation is that that be the next constructive step is doing that cost accounting. That was the recommendation by NRRA.
Yeah, and you guys all saw that, all the information from NRRA and how we compare to other towns and everything. I wish that could have been sent to the Waste Reduction Committee. We didn't get that. It would have been useful. So, thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Liz
Oh,
Gilmore.
I was sorry. Okay.
I am a member of the Waste Reduction Committee. And I just, when I saw this presentation where it said an option, I don't understand how there can be an option when there is an ordinance that says we are to use green bags. And I go to the transfer station. I'm a little unique because it takes me at least 2 months to fill up a 13-gallon bag, green bag. And that's because I'm very careful about what I purchase. I'm very careful about if I have something smelly, I put it in my freezer, and then finally when I'm ready to get rid of the bag, in it goes. But when I go to the transfer station, there's absolutely no one legislating what's supposed to be legislated. I rarely have anything to toss, but I occasionally will put something on the shelf. And then I circle around the vehicles that are parked there, putting their stuff, not in green bags, into the hopper, and there are no stickers on them. And that's part of the whole ordinance that says people who use the transfer station will have stickers. And those will be checked. So is there a point at which it would make some sense to hire someone whose job at the transfer station is to make sure that people are using green bags, that they have a sticker on their car, that they are authorized to even use the transfer station, and wouldn't even, yes, you're paying someone for that, but wouldn't you pay for it, that person, because you're incentivizing people to, for instance, I'm not going to put something that's recyclable into my green bag. I'm going to recycle it. I see responsible people who put their stuff out at the curb in big black plastic bags. I can see that there are recyclable things in there. It doesn't make any sense to me. It makes zero sense that we have an ordinance, but we don't enforce it. So
I think that
I'm a little frustrated.
no, I think that most people would agree with you. I think that that's kind of why we're here. And I think that this is the idea of expanding curbside pickup is just a potential idea to help expand the green bag program, and in no way solves a lot of the problems you're talking about. And I think that that's still something that we're hoping to talk to the Waste Reduction Committee next week about all of their recommendations.
Sure.
About how to solve those problems. I think like right now it's not, if we could just say immediately everyone's just going to be checked, I think we would have done that already. And so figuring out how exactly we could enforce it better at the transfer station, how would we pay for someone to do that? All of those things. It's an open question that isn't an easy solution, but I think everyone has the same frustrations.
Yeah, but we just can't continue to do what we're doing.
Well, so just
to Mother Earth.
Right.
We just can't.
Yeah, I think we all agree with that. I appreciate your comments, but just to sort of put this all in context, I could not be at our last meeting, but the meeting before that, I believe, was the meeting where we said we're going to go to the transfer station and talk to the employees there. We're going to engage the NRA. We're going to engage waste reduction. We don't have, like snap our fingers, solve every problem, but we're just a few weeks removed from like our initial conversation about our plan moving forwards. I think we're on track doing what we hoped to do, which is keep moving the ball forward. This is not intended to be like a distraction or some sort of like solve all the problems. It's just an idea. So we're still moving forward on the track that we proposed. So I just want to be clear on that. And obviously like compliance is a major issue. So feel your frustration.
Can I just add
Yes,
one other thing?
please.
And just one other point that, if we end up at a place where part of the way we address this issue is more staffing at the transfer station to do enforcement, it's not just something that we can just do all of a sudden. I mean, that money, we only raise and appropriate funds once a year, and that's at town meeting. So that means we're going to be coming to the voters and asking for more money for that purpose. If we wanted to hire someone before next March, then that means we'd have to pull money from something else to do that. And that doesn't even address finding someone to take on that job. I don't know if you heard earlier, but the transfer station is down several employees already. And so, understand and agree that these are issues that we have to figure out. But it's not as simple as just, hiring someone to do enforcement. It's a little more complicated, and it's going to take more time to do it. And we don't even know if that is the direction we want to go. So I just wanted to add that.
Sabrina, just to follow up on what you just said, I don't want you to think that we're expecting you to, that we'll just snap our fingers and you'll jump and solve the problems. But if we could just be kept in the loop a little more. I didn't even know that Brian had come to the transfer station. I didn't know he had sent a report in. I didn't know any of that. I thought nothing was happening. So if we could just.
Okay. Yeah, we did. Yeah.
It's happening now.
Yes, I appreciate that. And we did talk about him coming at our last meeting, I believe.
Yep.
You said you were going to try to set that up. So, but yes, appreciate that, Bonnie, and look forward to having the Waste Reduction Committee visit at our next meeting. All right.
Thank you. I'm Meredith Hatfield. I live at 68 Apple Tree Lane. I wanted to start off by thanking you so much for posting the supporting documents for the meeting. I'm sure that took work for somebody. Really appreciate that. I will try not to be repetitive because I agree with a lot of the things that have been said. I think unfortunately this has been a distraction. So I'm hopeful that we can coordinate better between the committee and the select board. I have a lot of concerns about, I really think that our waste goals should be around reduction and facilitating that. And I don't think what has been discussed supports those goals. I like going to the transfer station, and like one of the prior speakers, go maybe once a month because of composting, recycling, and some of the other things that she talked about. And I think there might be a role for the Waste Reduction Committee in trying to encourage reducing waste, which is very costly and has such major environmental impacts all across our state. And then in terms of the cost, I hope that when NRRA does their work, that they could perhaps include a review of costs of similar bag programs around the state, because $5 or $6 sounds extremely high. And I do think that that could result in like just roadside dumping if people didn't have any other options. And this idea of paying haulers, this is my second meeting hearing about this, and I just simply can't get my mind around it, because unless it's town-wide and everyone has to use it, I think if you're someone who pays the $5 and goes to the transfer station, you are subsidizing people who aren't going to the transfer station, and you're also subsidizing a lack of recycling. So lots of costs. Look forward to the information. And, I think if the Waste Reduction Committee is not meeting your needs, perhaps we need to have a conversation about that, because I think you've heard some frustration about, parallel efforts. So thank you.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
I just, for what it's worth, I think that if in a scenario where bag revenue is helping to pay for curbside pickup, there would have to be a separation between the bags for transfer station and bags for, I don't think you can sell the same price bag to someone who's taking their own trash to the transfer station. Does that make sense? Like this is, none of this addresses anything about the transfer station, but I don't think it's fair to have a scenario where you have the exact same price bag that's covering the cost of hauling, that someone would then have to spend the same price, right, to go to the transfer station.
That makes sense. It brings another complication into it.
Yeah, well, I mean, right now there's no enforcement at the transfer station anyway, so like right now you just ignore. It's not a complication because it doesn't exist, but yeah, if we were to then do enforcement at the transfer station, we would have to have a separation between those two bags, or however that works out.
Okay. Anyone else on this topic for now? All right, thank you all for your comments. Thank you, Thomas.
Is
All right.
there, can I just
Yeah.
ask a question? Is there anything that would prevent us from sharing Brian Patno's reports with waste reduction?
I think it's posted on our stuff. Generally, when reports come in that
Yeah.
come to the board, they come to the board before they get dispersed to
Yeah.
committees. So that just came in and that's been our policy, but certainly
But I mean, it
Not.
sounds like they don't, or they haven't previously seen that information and, you know, there was some frustration about that. And I'm just wondering if we can just provide it to them, you know, so they can make sure we get it to them.
yes.
Thank you.
But so do you not want things coming to the board before?
No, I'm happy with the
Because this is the
process.
first time you've met since.
Yeah, no,
I just want to make sure
yeah,
we're following, and I think we shared it publicly. With your packet information.
okay.
Not everything was shared, but I'd have to look and see. What certain things can't be shared because it contains people's information.
Right.
and-
Right.
All right. So next under old business is the Dust and Music Fund draft procedure.
It is in your packet. You might be able to pull it up. So initially, actually, under authority, the only change since it's been updated, but the only change since it went out is Stephen recommended adding the part that's in red under authority, referencing RSA 41:9, Roman numeral 6. Which requires the board to establish and maintain appropriate internal control procedures to ensure safeguarding all town assets. And this is an initial draft. And there were no samples out there, so this is from scratch.
Nicely done.
Do we want to have as a policy that, you know, the principle is to remain as close to the original gift as possible? And basically only spend the interest earnings?
Wait, sorry, what was the question? Do we want to?
I'm asking the board if we want to have more specific guidance under 5.2. Because right now it just says the longevity of the trust. If all or a portion of the principal is expended. And I'm posing the question if we just want to say the principal is off limits, basically.
Yeah, so I
Just going to spend interest.
don't know. I think that's worth if that's the goal, it's worth a conversation though, because if the goal is to just spend interest, then over time, it's not a substantial amount of money to
gain interest.
right. And we would need to be gaining principal in order to then make up enough interest to make the same cost repayments every year. So it's and based on the amount of basically the amount of the donation, I'm not entirely sure that was the goal.
Right.
Which I could be totally wrong. I'm just saying
Actually, the original document says both income and principal. So this would just be your policy.
Yeah. I mean, I worry that if the requests each year are going to be on the order of, you know, $1,000 to $1,300, we're going to spend down the principal
2,500.
or even more. That's right. Yeah, thank you. Even more than that, then the fund's not going to last very long.
she has a son. Is that correct? There was a letter from a family
Yes.
member.
Mhm.
we could ask the family member how long they think this should be expected to last for. Cause like, I can't imagine this lasting forever if we're. But if they're like, it'd be great if this was something that this trust fund was around for at least 25 years, then it would give us an indication of how much we should be spending every year.
And I guess part of managing it, to your point, Stephen, is we would have to say no to people if they ask for $3,000 or $2,500 and it's going to spend it down to.
Or at least make it
Smaller.
known that there's a limitation on how much
Yeah.
we can pull from the trust.
Mhm. So I guess that's considered in the longevity of the trust if all or a portion of the principal is expended.
Somewhat, yeah.
I think the wording here is okay. I think it works. I think if we just had like an initial conversation that could carry on, that would just give us like, because it could change too, but if we just had a conversation about how long we think it should last for, how much principal we should be spending every year, or none at all.
I like the idea of asking the family for some guidance. I think that's a great idea. I mean, I tend to think there should be some more specificity in this because the way it's worded right now, our opinion could change from one year to the other. It could change with the makeup of this board. And so it just doesn't give the people that are reliant on this money a whole lot to go on for what to expect. And, you know, the cost of doing these concerts is likely to increase just because that's how most costs work these days. And so I guess want to be clear with the chamber or whomever is the one scheduling these concerts and trying to use this money, what they can expect to get from this fund going forward.
I'm happy to reach out to him and have a conversation and see if he has any guidance.
Okay. I think that makes sense. Okay, so more to come on that. Is this specific to the Dustin music issue, Louise? Okay, if you can just hold on for a couple more items, then we'll have our public comment. All right, do we have any new business? Okay. Town administrator updates, Neil?
Sure. So just so you know, I will not be at the next meeting. I will be traveling for graduation, which is quite exciting. Some other updates. The George Park fence should just about be done. When I was by there mid-afternoon, all the posts and everything were up and they were putting the last of it up. That's a huge safety improvement as well as an improvement all the way around. We were able to increase the area where cars can park to get off the pavement. So
That's good.
I know there had been debate back and forth whether there should be any parking there. And then they will enforce the no parking on the other side, which should keep it better. Staffing, I already noted that we're 2 people short in the highway department, which is difficult, and we're 1 person down at the transfer station with another who's been out. The roof is being replaced on the Bates building. It's scheduled for tomorrow, so hopefully that will work. I did have a conversation with 2 villages, and their most recent showing ended on Saturday. So this is good timing. So that all worked out. We got a quote to upgrade the alarm system in this building, partly to get it out of that section that we'd like to rip apart. So we're trying to work on that. The PD roof is scheduled to be done also this summer. I don't have an exact date on that. During the rain, there was water running into my office. So we have a rubber membrane roof on the back section. So we're getting a quote to replace that. It's been patched and seems to be working pretty well. But on that, we're also, I'm not sure we'll be able to do it this year, but next year, as well as next year, we would paint the whole building too, because it's getting pretty bad and the poor neighbors have to look at it. We want them to be happy. They give us beautiful flowers to look at. So, and the contracts were signed for the Houston barn. So we're just waiting for a schedule on that. I think. And we've got grants going every which way. So that's kind of what's going on.
Mhm. Good.
Yeah, since you're not going to be here at next meeting, will you be providing financials?
We possibly could. Yes, we should.
That it? Okay.
Oh, that's a relatively easy one.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. All right, now we will have our public comment. Louise, if you want to come up. If anyone online wants to talk, feel free to raise your hand.
Louise Carr, Burnham Interville Road. On the music draft. First of all, wasn't before it was like up to 50% they could ask for, and I noticed there's no amount on this one. Should there be, and especially if you're trying to make it go as long as you can,
Mhm.
up to, like, I don't know what the up to is, because I don't know how much money you have, but up to or no more than, or I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
And that would extend it. But I think that would help. It's like they'll come, or whoever it is that is asking for money, would come and say, we want, $7,000, and so it's that. You don't have that back and forth, back and forth. It's like, they will know ahead of time, it's up to whatever that is.
Mhm.
So that's my comment on that. And then the other thing is the request, actually. So we have talked over several years of the Kimball Lake and the road. And so I always ask Dan every year, it's like, do you think we'll be getting to that? And he tells me that he needs the okay to go ahead and do that. So basically, it'll be their time and to regrade the road. They're gonna put, where the stone wall is, they would take the bushes out of there and use fill from, whatever they have for fill. And that would double the parking in there. And he has to grade the road so that the water runs off instead of huge puddles and all those potholes. So he's willing to do it. He says, someone needs to tell me we can do it. And then he'll schedule it whenever.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if
Ac-
that's,
Actually, as long as they're short staffed, it's not.
oh yeah,
high
I'm
on-
not,
It's not high on his priority
right,
list.
right.
And I think it would
Right.
be helpful to have a plan of what the Kimball Cabin Committee wants done. We've talked about taking bushes out here or there, and
Mhm.
I
Oh,
haven't
no.
seen anything.
I
that,
mean, we
So a written plan.
can, because we're starting to meet Wednesday to finish up cabin 4. So we'll be there every Wednesday. But it's a town road, so it's really not up. We can give you input, but I guess most of
most-
us feel it's a town road.
Mostly
So
about the
that-
changes. As far as just grading it, that's just maintenance. But
Yep.
if there's something that somebody wants changed, that would be different.
Okay, all right.
Like, I
But
don't
if we could just-
understand what adding parking
Well,
means. So, and I don't want to talk about it now, but
no, so, well, Dan knows, because he's been over there and, when we've been working over there. And so he knows this, he knows it, and he has agreed, but he just says, if he gets the okay, then he can put it in a schedule.
Mhm.
And he, like you said, it may not be this year. because he's understaffed. And I'm like, hey, it's been this long. Just as long as we know that it will get addressed, even if it's next year, we'll know it's going to get addressed. That's all. 'Cause that
Mhm.
road is terrible. Even they grade it and then it rains and people
Mm.
splash in the holes and it's just a mess. But
Okay.
yeah, if you could discuss that and just let Dan know, because it's no extra cost. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Louise. Oh, I have a hand. Oh, sorry, Neil. Were you gonna
Yeah,
say something?
I still don't understand what changes are requested. So as far as
Okay.
just grading the road, I think if there's going to be changes, that would come back to the board to
Okay.
approve prior to that. So.
Okay. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, I hope everyone can hear me. Sorry, I'm schlepping children. I
Yes.
just wanted to touch base on two things, actually not trash. I really appreciate the clarity of the process that you guys are under.
Uh-oh. Okay, yeah, we still got you.
You have me still?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay, so just two quick things. First, I do want to publicly thank you guys for putting in the fence at George Park. It looks great. We really appreciate it. And the second thing is for the Dustin Fund, I would advocate putting in a specific amount because all the rest of money is raised through local donation. So it gives them a good understanding of what we'll need.
Okay, you're breaking up a little, Andrea, but I believe we got the gist. We got the thank you for the fence. We'll take that. And then on the Dustin music issue, you said putting in a specific amount would be helpful, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, great. Well, thank you for your comments. Thanks for calling in, sticking with us.
Thanks.
All right. Bye. We have no one else online. Okay, anyone else for public comment? All right, we'll wrap that up. Thank you to everyone who came tonight and who commented. The last thing on our public agenda is other. Does anyone have other? No other, okay. Great. All right. So we have two non-publics tonight. And so once we're done with those, we will not be going back into public. We will be adjourning. And so someone wants to make a motion to go in. Both are under E32C.
I move we go into non-public sessions under RSA 91A3, Roman 2, little c.
I will second.
Right. This is roll call, right? Okay, yeah. Stephen,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tom?
Yes.
All right, great. We'll be going into non-public. Thank you, everyone who joined us tonight. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Was it easier to hear? Was it easier to hear?
Oh, good.